Hey, welcome back everyone. In this video, we will be learning about the wait methods in Selenium Python. So we will be creating an end-to-end test where we will add item to the cart and then we will change the cart quantity and then verify the updated price of our cart total. So let me show you what that will look like. So I'm here on Practice Automation Bro website. So I clicked on the shop link. As you can see, I'm on the shop page. And what we will do is basically add an item to the cart. So let's take this one example. I'm going to add this one to the cart. The moment I do that, it will basically tell me that the item has been added to the cart. Like right over here, so it says item has been added to the cart, and I can click on this view cart. And this will open up this page for me, which is my cart page. Here I can see the current total, which is $120. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to add item to the cart, and then we're going to come here on the cart page. We're going to verify the total. Then we will change the quantity. The moment I change the quantity, after I click the update cart, just notice we see this loading screen. And after the loading screen goes away, the cart total will get updated over here. So as you can see, it's $240 now. So we're going to do this end-to-end scenario where we will add item to the cart, we will change the quantity, and then we will verify the total cart over here. And while we will be doing this, we will run into some issues, and then we will take a look at how we can fix those issues using the new wait methods that we will be learning. So let's get started. Alright, I'm back on PyCharm, and over here I've created a new class and called this one cart test. Now here, if you can notice, I'm using this cart page. So since we learned page object model in our previous video, I implemented that over here. And now moving forward, we're going to be using page objects for all of our new tests. So if I go to the cart page, you can see our cart page has a bunch of selectors right over here, and then have one method over here, which is our open page, which is basically just going to the cart page right over here. So pretty straightforward. And as you can also notice that we are importing base case over here, which is part of our SeleniumBase class. So over here, I have two methods. One is my setup method where I'm opening the shop page. And then from the shop page, I've created a new test, which is add item to the cart. So here we have a couple of things we need to do. So I've added in all the comments that we actually need to do here. So we're going to add the item to the cart. We're going to assert the product is added to the cart. Then we will open the cart page and then we will get the current subtotal. Then we will change the cart quantity. So from 1, we're going to change it to 2. And then we're going to assert that the subtotal should be different than the original subtotal. So let's say if the subtotal is $400 before, when we change it to 2, then it should be $800. Alright, so I hope you understand what this test will be. So let's go ahead and start implementing this. Alright, so let's get started with the first step, which is add item to the cart. And if I go to the cart page, you can notice that I've created this selector already. What this will do is it will click on the add to cart button to add this particular item to the cart. So we're going to click on this, and we can do that by doing self.click. And then I'm going to pass in the actual selector. So that's going to be self.converse add to cart button. Then after that, I'm going to assert that the product is added to the cart. So let's see how that will work. So if I go back to my Chrome, and over here, when I'm going to add item to the cart, so let's see if I'm adding this one, I'm going to do add to cart. And the moment I do this, you will notice on the top, this changes to 1. So this is what we're going to assert, that this cart icon over here shows us 1 over there. That means 1 item has been added. Now I've already got the selector for this one, so we're going to just add that over there. Let's head back to our test and actually implement that. So here we're going to assert our text, and we have looked into this in the previous video. So to assert a text, we're going to do self assert text, and then this will ask me what text I want to assert. So here I want to assert 1 because we're adding 1 item to the cart, and then I'm going to pass in the actual selector. So here my selector is going to be self, and that's going to be cart count text. So it's going to be this one, just right here. So here I'm just simply verifying the actual total count of my particular cart item. So I'm going to go back here. Now what we will do is we'll just run this part to see if this works successfully for us. So I will do pytest -k test underscore add to cart, or I can just do this add to. Okay, so this is opening the shop page. It's adding this item to the cart, and then our test. Let's see. Yeah, our test passed. So it asserted the text, which is basically self cart count text. It asserted that and made sure that the 1 item has been added to the cart. So that's good. So everything is working here so far. The next thing we're going to do is open the cart page. Now to open the cart page, I already have created a helper method here, which is open page. So we're going to use that. So I'm going to do self.open page. And since we are on the cart test, the open page refers to opening the cart page. So this will open up my cart page. I don't have to pass in the URL because that is already provided over here. So by now we have actually added the item to the cart, and then we have moved over to the cart page. then we're going to get the current subtotal. So to get the current subtotal, if I come over here, we actually have the subtotal text. So here we are simply going to do get the text of this particular element. So to get the text, we have already seen that before. So I'm going to do text, save it in a new variable, and then do self.getText, and then pass in that selector. So it's going to be self.subtotalText. And then what I will do is print this text to see if what it will print out. So I'm going to do print text here. So let's just run this part and see if it will actually print out the text for our subtotal. So I'm going to run this, but this time I'm going to pass in the -s flag so that it actually prints it out on the console. Okay, so our test finished running and it successfully passed. And as you can see, it printed out $150 over here. So it added that item to the cart and then it got the text, which is $150. So that is good. So far everything is actually working. Now the next thing we need to do is change our cart quantity. So for that, what we're going to do is right now our cart quantity shows 1 because we have only added one item. We're going to change this to 2. If I go back to Chrome, just to show you what that looks like, over here, if I come to the cart page, so we have this input field. So we're going to change this input field to 2, and then we will click on the update cart button. There are two things we will do here. First, set the value to 2 here, and then we're going to hit enter because either I can hit enter or click on the update cart button. So we will do that and see if this gets updated for us. Okay, so for this one, I also already have this cart quantity input right here. So we're going to send value to this one, basically change the value for this particular input. So here I will do self.setValue. And then here I will pass in the selector. So it's going to be self.product quantity input. And then I'm going to say what text I want to pass in here. So here I want to pass in 2 because that's what I'm changing. And then I'm going to click on the update cart button, which is right over here, right? This thing, update cart button. So I will do self.click and not this one. It's going to be self.click. And then pass in the selector, which is self.update cart button. And then finally, we have this assert subtotal to be different than the original subtotal. So what we will do is I'm going to add in my assertion here. So I'm going to do assert. Actually, this is going to be self.assert. So this will be self.assert. Instead of doing assert equal, we will do assert not equal. And then I'm going to pass in my text. So this text at this moment, it's, let's see, what was it? It was $150. So I'm going to make sure the $150 should not equal to the new text. And that one's going to be $300. So I'm going to do text, which is $150, should not equal. And here I'm going to get the new text. Or actually, to make it simpler, what I can do is create this updated text. And then I'm going to try to get the updated text here. And I can do the same way, which is I was doing over here. And then just change this to updated text right here. So our current text, which is this one, should not equal to the updated text. This is what we're saying with this. Now let's run this test to see if it will work this time. And before doing that, I'm going to print out updated text to see what is actually it will printing out over here for us so that we can see the updated text. All right, so this time our test actually failed. And let's take a look at the assertion error. So the assertion error we have is $150 is not equal to the $150. So that's weird, right? Because we were expecting it to be $300 because over here we actually told it to change the quantity to 2. So that should have changed it and actually printed out the $300 over there. So let's scroll up to see what exactly happened. So over here, you can notice that the first time we printed it out, which was our current text right here, was $150. So that is good. But the next one, which is our updated text, that printed out and that is also $150. So that is weird, right? Because we were expecting it to be $300 here and that should have worked for us. So what exactly happened? Well, let's go back to Chrome and take a look at what happens when we actually click that button. So when I change this to 2 and click on update cart, you notice we get this loader and it's actually taking time to change this text to 300. So what happened is by the time this is actually loading, so if I switch it back, right now my text is still $300. So what Selenium is doing, it's actually going in and trying to get the text right away. So the moment we change this to 2 and we click update cart, the next step it's doing is getting the total text. So the total text right now was still $150. And that's the problem we are running into over here. Now this is one of those scenarios where you have to specifically mention to wait X amount of seconds so that you can get your text or basically whatever value that you're trying to get updated and then actually verify that. So in our scenario, we need to tell the browser that, hey, wait a couple of seconds until this text change. Once the text change, get the text and then give it back to me. So let's see how we can actually do that. I'm going to go back to our test. So right over here, we are actually changing the cart, right? We're clicking on this click button, which is updating our cart. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add this wait few seconds, basically. That's all I'm going to say. Now there are a couple of ways to wait for this. The first method, which is I would tell you to not use, is actually time.sleep. And here I'm going to say that sleep for X amount of seconds. So let's say we want it to sleep for 5 seconds. And then I need to make sure that I'm importing time. So I can do that by just scrolling all the way up. And then I'm just going to do import time. So now this error went away. So let's run this and see if our test would actually work by just doing this. Okay, so this time our test still failed. And as you can see, it says 150 is still not equal to 150. Now, technically, this should have passed because we did waited for that loader screen to go away and then it actually for us to verify this text. Now, this one is a bit weird behavior and it's only specific to this test. You don't really have to worry about this, but what I'm going to do is just add in a couple of extra steps here. So right after when we are setting this input to 2, we also need to hit enter. So I'm going to do self.sendKeys. And then here, I'm just going to do the same thing, product quality input. Now, after entering 2, I'm just going to hit enter. So to hit enter, I need to do keys.return. Now, this keys comes from the Selenium library, so I need to import that. So what I will do is I will go all the way up. And here, I'm going to do from selenium.webdriver.common.keys import keys. So here now what I'm doing is I'm changing the quantity to 2 and after that I'm hitting enter. So right over here I'm hitting this return key, which is basically hitting enter, and then I'm clicking on the update cart button. So now let's run this to make sure this works. Alright, so as you can see our test passed this time, and if you notice in the browser also it actually waited and then the text changed, and here as you can see it was 150 before and now it is $300. So it's actually working as we expected it to be. So this part right over here, I know this was a bit weird. So you don't have to really worry about this part, but the main thing was we use this time.sleep to actually wait for a few seconds. Now this is a really bad practice. We should not use time.sleep. So the reason for that is because we are now waiting 5 seconds for anything to do. So basically our test is stopped for 5 seconds and after that we're actually doing something. Like let's say what if this updated text got changed after 2 seconds? We are still wasting a 3 second, right? Now, this seems really small if you're just considering it as 3 seconds, but just imagine if you're using this and everywhere and pretty much all of your tests, then you're wasting 3 seconds like pretty much for all of your tests, right? And that will eventually add up and it will accumulate to a lot of time that you're just wasting doing this by using this time.sleep. Instead, what it's recommended is to wait until this text is updated. So we have specific wait methods in Selenium that we can use. What that will do is wait for this specific text to get updated and then we will actually go ahead and move on to the next step. So let's see how that will work. So I'm going to comment this out. Now, if you remember when we were actually clicking on that button, we were seeing that loader. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to try to wait for that loader to be completed. And the way that would work is, if we come back here, I'm going to add in a new text comment. So I'm going to say wait for loading to be completed. And then here, I'm going to wait for that particular element to come up. So I'm going to wait for that loading screen to come up. And then once it's up, I'm going to wait for it to go away. So there are 2 methods that we're going to use, which is wait for the element to be visible and then wait for element to be not visible. So let's do that. So we're going to do self.wait for, and as you can see, there are a lot of wait methods here that we can use. The one that we're going to be using is wait for element to be visible. And then also this one, wait for element to be not visible. The first one here, I'm going to say the loading overlay, which is this loading screen. I'm going to say self.loading overlay. So I want it to come to the screen. So once it is on the screen, then I also want it to go away. So then I will say self.wait for element. And this one's going to be not visible. So it's going to be not underscore visible. And then same selector that we added over here, we're going to add this here. Now, if you're wondering why are we not just verifying this directly, and why are we even just verifying whether it is coming on the screen? Well, the reason is, let's say if I click on this button and right away if I'm checking, hey, that the loading screen should not be on the screen. This and between the time between this and this to come up, there might be a couple of milliseconds that it's actually taking. So what this will do is right away it's going to check whether, oh, is there a loading screen? It will say that there is no loading screen and then it will move on to our next test. So because of that, we will still see $150 here. So that's why we need to make sure that we are seeing the loading screen. Once it comes up on the screen, then we are verifying that the loading screen actually goes away. So now let's run this test to see if this will work for us. Okay, so our test finished running, and as you can see, this time our test passed again, and we can see it was 150 before, now it's and 300 over here afterwards. So just by using this wait for element, we're actually now waiting for that loading screen to come up. Now that loading screen can, let's say, can take just 1 second, or it can take, let's say, 5 to 10 seconds. Doesn't really matter. As long as we're waiting for that particular element, our test will wait. Now there is a certain limitation to this. Like by default, SeleniumBase has, I think, 6 seconds that it waits for. You can change the default options. But yeah, so basically it will wait for that to come up, and then it will wait for that to go away. And if I click on this wait for element visible to show you what it's actually doing, you can see here. So it's actually doing something as wait for element. So it checks for that particular timeout. And once the timeout hits, and you can actually pass in the timeout too. So right here, you can say, oh, wait for X amount of seconds. So I can basically come in here and then do comma and then actually add in my timeout here. So that could be like 5 seconds or 10 seconds. But here I'm just going to keep it by default, whatever it is. Okay, so we looked into 2 ways. Basically, one was this bad practice, time.sleep, and then this way, which is wait for element to be visible. And then actually we also looked into the wait for element to be not visible. Another thing that we can do is, instead of making sure that element is there, we can just verify that for the text to be there. So we can wait for that particular text to come up. And so the good thing is SeleniumBase provides us with another nice helper method which we can use, and that is self.waitForText. So let's see how that works. So here I'm going to just simply change this to self, actually right over here after the print statement. I will do self.waitForText. The wait for text takes a particular text here. So I'm going to pass it 300. And then I'm going to say it should wait for this text to be updated. So I'm going to do self.subtotalText and actually add in dollar here, because this should be exactly the same way that is over here. It's going to be 300.00. Now let's run this to see if this will get updated for us. And I'm going to comment these 2 out right here. Okay, so as you can see, our test failed here. And the reason for that, well, this was my mistake. Because if you notice, the test actually waited for that loader to go away. But the problem was, or basically not the loader, the actual text to change. But the problem was we are verifying this with updated text right here. So this thing, we are verifying it with this. Instead, if I just move this up, I'm going to take this entire thing and move it up here. So it is just the where we need to actually put this in. So we are going to first wait for this text to change, and then we're going to get the text for that particular thing, and then we'll compare it here. So I was actually comparing it first, and then I was waiting for the text. So the order was wrong there. So let me run this, and now it should pass. All right, there you go. So this time it passed again. So here we are simply, as you can see, we were just waiting for that text to change. And then that was pretty straightforward, right? We were saying, okay, our assertion was to make sure the text should not be same. So we are waiting for that text to change to $300. And then we were actually just basically comparing right over here. Now, depending on your use case, you might prefer to use wait for element visible or not visible, or you might prefer to use just wait for text instead. Now, there are other wait elements too, such as wait for element to be present, wait for element to be not present. So depending on whatever you want to do, you can use those wait commands for your particular use case. But yeah, one key thing I want to really emphasize before we end this video, that you should never use hard-coded sleeps like this over here, because this is really, really bad for you. Instead, try to always use these kind of wait commands, which are only waiting for that particular situation to get completed. Once the moment that situation gets completed, it goes and moves to the next steps of your test, rather than waiting for the entire 5 or 10 seconds. So just as a side note, this is also a common interview question that gets asked all the time during automation interview. So that's why you should really know why you should not use time.sleep or basically any kind of hard-coded sleep, and instead why you should probably prefer to use wait commands instead. So that's it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed this video, remember to smash that like button and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more content like this. And also don't forget to hit that bell icon. Also leave a comment below if you have any questions related to this video, or if there's some other topics you'd like me to create content on as well. That's all for now, guys. I will see you all in the next one.